Hello everyone, welcome back to this little mini-series of repairing this and getting it playing. In the last video, I showed you how I go about, or one way of going about, making tuning pegs, and I'm just going to drop them everywhere. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I go about making the bridge and the tailpiece. Get my finger in the right place would be handy. It's quite simple really, and it's actually easier than it looks. So what I'm going to have to do first is actually get these strings off of this instrument. Now I'm going to try and reuse these strings because I've had a look around, I don't actually have any more. Thought I did, so I'll just take the bridge out first. It's not fixed in place, you can move it around. So that's the bridge I made for this. The good thing is, historically, we don't have too much evidence of what the tailpieces look like. So you can kind of take some artistic license with that. Right, first things first, strings off. I do have a tuning tool here, which I might show you in the next video, because I'm just going to concentrate on the bridge and tailpiece in this one, and then show you how I go about making one of these, and then putting the strings on in the next one. I need to keep these on the tailpiece for now, so that I know in which order they are. If I take all these off and put them in a big pile, I'm not going to really remember which one's which. I've got these set at A, C, D, E, F, G, so that's my G string. Right, this is going to get tricky. So I'm going to disappear for a moment and I'll come back when I've got all the strings off. Right, there we go. All of the old oak tuning pegs removed from the instrument. I don't know if you can see it, but these are very shiny along the shank. That's where they've burnished inside the holes in the head for them, and they've smoothed down. That's what I mean by compression. It will compress ever so slightly as it crushes down the grain of the tuning peg being forced into the tapered hole in the head. So the tailpiece, as I said earlier, is just a piece of 12mm walnut dowel. It wasn't cheap and now I'm not using it, with a bit of paracord going through it. Now I don't have any more paracord, or do I? I do. I've got loads. Yeah, well, I said I don't have any paracord. I might have some. Yeah, that should do it, I'd imagine. Cut a load of excess off, because it's always good to have it too long. If it's too short, and then you have to recut another piece. So if it's too long, don't worry about it. Use a pair of scissors, Stanley knife, whatever. Right, now if I have any left for the next instrument, I know where it is. So once you've cut your paracord to a certain length, you don't have to use paracord. I use paracord because it doesn't stretch. Tie a knot into the end of it, just to make sure that that bit of end of paracord I just cut, which is actually this end, not that end. I'm just going to seal it with a lighter, very gently, just do that. Try not to breathe in the fumes that have come off that, because it's full of plastic. So that's your tail string prepared for your tailpiece. Next we're going to do the tailpiece. Now because I've used ash for the tuning pegs, I'm also going to use the same piece of ash for the bridge. I'm going to use ash, unsurprisingly, for the tailpiece. So get your ruler. Now I'm just copying the one from before because it can be exactly the same size. That is near enough 70mm long. 70mm by there. Just cut your piece of dowel off. Like that. Just going to get a piece of sandpaper now and just break over the edges here of the tailpiece. Right, the next part is to line up where you want your holes to go through. It's about 6mm. So if I drill a 6mm hole at two different points, one each end of this, I'm just going to get this old one, try and measure from the centre of the hole to the outside. I've got 12mm, so that leaves 9mm each side on the ends of your dowel on the outside of the hole. So that seems like a good place to me. Line up the dowel next to my ruler here. I'm just going to draw a line where I see 12mm is on each end. What I'm going to do now, have the pencil marks facing away from me, and I'm going to try and eyeball a halfway point across the diameter of the dowel and put a pencil line there. And that way I can know that it's facing straight up. And then I'm going to get a small clamp. And I'm going to put the dowel in the clamp, holding the clamp to the point where the line is vertical. Just give it an eyeball like that. Then, with a pair of dividers, I'm just going to very carefully mark a hole, put a little mark there to help the drill bit when I got to drill the hole through this, to guide it through, so that the brad on the end of the drill bit, using the wood bit specifically, has somewhere to guide into. Another instance where you need the pillar drill. Trying to eyeball a square jawed clamp with flat sides to it rather than the round bit like this one's got here. I might have to do that if I've got one that's small enough. Oh, you're in here somewhere, I know you are. Ah! Right, so I've got one of these little sort of sliding clamps with the flat jaws on it. Have I got one? Yeah, I have. These aren't the strongest things in the world, but it's going to be enough to just hold it in place so I can see where I'm going and that the piece of dowel is 90 degrees straight up. And that way your two holes will end up being near enough in line. So I can see that my line I drew on the end grain with the dowel is at 90 degrees. My fingers are quite close, but I'm not wearing gloves. So there's no chance of the glove I'm wearing getting caught in a drill bit and ripping my hands to shreds. Gently ease your drill bit through, nice and steady. Hold it firm if you can against your scrap block underneath, so you get the minimal amount of blowout. Just get your bit of sandpaper on your little sanding pad, or get rid of any excess that might tear into the tail string. That's good. That's pretty much a tailpiece ready to go. So I want this new piece of tail string to be the exact same length as the other piece of tail string, so that my strings end up being in the same place as they were before. Right, so now I've got the knot tied in, and that's not going to unravel itself. Try my very best to get this new tail string roughly about the same length. If it's a little bit shorter, it's okay. There's the old one. If it's a little bit longer, it's also okay, because that means that the strings I have more chance of getting the strings back into the pegs. I'll put the knot around about there, threading back through, check them against your other one. I mean, okay, it's a little bit longer, that's fine. That gives you more space for the strings to get up to the pegs, just in case, because it's always better to have that little bit further you can go rather than it being too short. Cut off the excess. Lighter, this isn't my lighter, it's actually Morgan's. I'm under specific instructions to not break it. Seal the end up with your lighter, and that's your tailpiece and tail string ready to be used. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do these bridges. This one is actually quite thin. It was working just fine. Of course, the timber I'm about to use is considerably thicker. I'll do it there, you can probably see. Yeah, that's considerably thicker, this piece of ash, than this bit of walnut, so that's good. And weirdly enough, the height that I've already cut out to get tuning pegs is pretty much the height I want. That's useful. Continuing that line, I need a ruler. Continuing that line downward. Lop all that off on the bandsaw. What I'm going to do first is roughly draw where I want to take off my new bridge from this piece of timber. Very roughly try and copy the old bridge onto the rippled ash for the new one. A very important thing about bridges is their height. You need a breakover angle, so where the string comes up and then breaks over the bridge and goes to the tuning pegs at this end, you need that angle to be not particularly steep, but you do need a bit of height to your bridge so you have that angle, so that the tension of the string on the bridge, as you strum the strings or pick the strings, it vibrates through the bridge and into the soundboards, and then you get your sound. If you don't have enough breakover angle, it kind of subdues it a bit. I've got our rough shape of our bridge sort of drawn on there, what I want, because I'm just gonna match this one. But I'm just going to saw out by hand around the bridge. Don't need to use a bandsaw for this, you can just use a hand saw, it's absolutely fine. There we go. What I need to do now is square off the feet. Don't square them off, it'll sit at an angle and it won't actually work properly. Just using a block plane, I'm following the grain of the ash. I'll follow the grain, and the grain is actually going up at an angle like that. Do a couple of little passes with this block plane. Use my square now to check for squareness. That's pretty good, could take a little bit more off the back here. It's fighting me a little bit. Right, what I need for this next part is actually force the bits from within this box. What did I use last time? It might have been a 20. You know what, I'm going to go with a 20 because this is actually taller. This new blank is a little bit taller than the old one, than the old bridge. So I'm going to go with a 20 for the bottom one. I'm just sort of making this up as I go along, as I do with these things. That looks alright. And I'm going to take 20 off. Use a 20 in the corners. Yeah, that looks okay. What you've got to be mindful of, I've done quite a lot of these now, and I don't use an exact science to work out what I'm doing with them. I sort of do it by feel. That is 65mm wide. It's only 32.5 in the middle there. Because that's a 20mm Forstner bit, I'm going to go 7 or 8mm from this bottom edge. Set this at 8mm. Punch a hole right there where I want a little guide tip on the Forstner bit to start drilling. Now that is going to have to be lower because I can see now the curve is going to make for a very strange looking hole. So we'll go a little bit lower, but that's fine because that will drill the hole out anyway that I've just punched. A little square set of 5mm, following the line, right in the corner. Make a good size mark. The lead point on the Forstner bit to follow. Yep, that looks good there. Just having a little eyeball from up top to see how that hole's going to come out. That looks nice. A bit tricky up here now, so I think I'm going to go a couple of mil in from each corner. That looks about 3mm there. So I'm just going to draw a line here, and I'm going to draw a line there. And because I'm going to be drilling that bit out, it's not going to it's going to be getting rid of all these pencil lines anyway, so it's all good. Like that. And on those crosshatch points, I will punch a hole so I can see where I want the lead point of the Forstner bit to go in. Right, so I'm going to be very carefully now, and very, very slowly. So my hands are very close, but I'm not wearing gloves, and there's a good reason for that. Because if I was wearing gloves and my glove got wrapped up around that drill bit, that Forstner bit, it's going to pull my hand in, and I'm probably going to, I will lose skin, it'll probably break the fingers, it'll probably tear flesh to pieces, rip tendons, and it's called degloving. It's not just taking the glove off your hands, it's ripping skin, crushing bones, tearing tendons apart, all bloody sorts. You don't want it, I have seen it happen. So don't wear gloves with rotating tools. As much as your instincts tell you to, don't do it. Very, very slowly, taking a little bit away at a time. Unfortunately, I've got no way of clamping this down. This is the only way to do it. Just be very, very aware where your hands are in relation to that Forstner bit. And feed the Forstner bit into your piece as slowly as you can. If you rush this and try and force it through, it'll just catch. You can fling into your face, drag your fingers at that bit. Even if you haven't got gloves on, it's going to bloody hurt. It can make a mess. Chances are it'll try and move as you get to the end. There we go. That's taken a nice perfect curve off. That's actually quite pretty, I think. Now comes the really weird bit. The corners are far worse to try and get than the middle bit. The good thing is I can keep my fingers further away and use more force on my fingers to clamp it down. Again, very, very slowly. Even if the shavings are taken off and virtually dust, do it slowly. Don't get me wrong, people are going to be able to see it's machine finished rather than done with a knife or a spoke shave or a specific kind of tool, but the fact is most of the instruments I build are machine made. I use a router, I use a pillar drill as you're seeing now, I use a belt sander, a random orbit sander, so if a bit of machine work on your bridge, it's not really the end of the world, and if it looks pretty and it works well, then what's the problem? Again, feed it in very, very slowly. Try and hog it out real quick. It's just going to catch like that. That can happen. probably from the waste underneath. Get the rest of that off with a knife. Thankfully, it's very, very thin, so it should just carve away. So that bit that's left over here that we don't want there, I'm going to get rid of that now. I'm just going to get rid of this bit of excess in here that I don't need. Try and take a little bit off at a time. You can always get a bit of sandpaper on a bit of dowel. Get as close as you can with a knife and then do the rest with sandpaper if that should so suit you better. And there's our bridge ready to have the planing done on the sides to get that taper in it. So I've just accidentally done this, or this planing, without actually recording it. That's clever. So what I've done is I've placed, and that does look fairly torn out with it, it's rippled ash, it's going to tear out at some point. So I've placed it in the vise, side on like that. Maybe not quite like that. Well, I'll do it without showing you, clamping it in. I've placed it in, side on like that. So I've started at this edge, and I've started to work my way across with the whole plane. Angling the block plane slightly, and going across like this, until the point, and moving your way across until the whole blade is engaging with the whole piece. And then that creates your taper, as you've ended up with here. I accidentally, like I say, didn't record it. I do have a little bit more work to do actually, so I could try and get it clamped into the vise without it popping back out. It's in the vise, nice and flat. And I'm going to start at this edge. And what you do is, as you go across, you just work your way across the whole piece. Like so. And if it pops out, it pops out. It's going to fight you a bit with this, because you haven't got a lot of your piece clamped in the vise. There probably is another way of doing it. If you know of a better way of doing this, please share, because it'll only help people. I can tidy the rest up this with sandpaper. So I've got a sanding belt here. Yeah, that's quite good. This side could be a little bit better. There's a little bit of tear out still here. I'll get rid of that now, best I can. Do it with the other hand. Try and keep my fingers off of the sandpaper as best I can, because I like my fingertips where they are. Right, okay, that's a smoothed out bridge. So I've got my sanding pad back out, with a bit of 120 on it. I'm just going to take all these sharp edges off. So the next thing to do is mark out where the strings are going to sit in little grooves along here. Place your bridge in the vise. You do need a really fine point on your pencil now. So what I'm going to do is measure the length of this top section. It's 35. So I want to find the halfway point, which is going to be 17.5, which is there. That's my halfway point. And then I'm going to go 3mm. I can't see it properly with that, the end of this square, because it's been fairly battered. About 1.5 mm from that centre point, either side. And then I want to put another 2 marks each side of those first 2 that we've made for the grooves, because that centre one's just a centre point to jump off from, and these 2 outer ones that we've just put in, they're actually lines for the grooves themselves, for the strings to fit in. Mark up a line of whatever 10mm and go 3mm there, and then there. From that point, 3mm, then 6mm. So we want to go 3mm, so that's 17. And then 6mm, so that's going to be 14 there. Now we're going to ignore that middle one, like I said, ignore that completely, because that is just a jumping off point, a mark that we've made to see where we need to put our grooves in. So 3mm spacing is enough for these strings to be apart from each other, so that they're not interfering with each other, and so they're not interfering with each other on the tailpiece. You could go a bit longer if you wanted. We could have gone for 4mm, I've just gone for 3. 3mm is what I usually use. What I use next, a very small square file. Using a very small square file, we're going to use the tip, or the ridge. We'll line it up very carefully and go across. Try and keep it nice and square. I'm just going to make a little groove like that, and then we'll go to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like that. Go on to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Counting 10 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very, very gently remove the pencil line that I drew earlier for the centre point, but not lose the grooves that I've just cut in. Cut the grooves a little bit deeper now. So again, using the ridge of the square or triangular mini file, I'm putting medium amount of pressure on here now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Try and keep your stroke lengths the same as well. And that way you end up removing the same amount of material. And that, all you need for your strings to sit in there. So now we have our tailpiece, our bridge, and our tuning pegs. These two are actually slightly bigger on the head than these. And I found my tuning tool from my other instrument, and this actually fits those 6 pegs. So I'm putting these two aside as spares. I'll show you in the next video how to go about making one of these. For now, so I'm going to get some wax out. I'm going to open the tin of wax with a ruler, because that's what you do. I find the best thing to apply this wax with is actually a sponge. Now I'm not going to put any wax onto the shanks of these pegs. I'm just going to put it on the head just so it looks nice and pretty. I don't want the shank to end up slipping too much within the instrument. You actually want it to grip. So having that sort of slightly rough surface from the peg cutter, the tapered peg cutter, is actually going to be your friend there. This is just furniture wax. This is what I've used on the rest of the instrument. I don't have time now, right this moment, to go showing you how to string one of these instruments. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it here, and the next time I see you, I will be stringing the instrument and making a tuning tool and show you how I go about that. Thank you very much for watching. I know it hasn't been the most thrilling subject in the world, and it's been a little bit of a dull one, but hopefully the next one will be a little bit more entertaining and probably quite instructional at the same time. So we've got our tailpiece with the tail string ready to go. The bridge is done, got a nice taper on it. I will buff all the excess wax off before I actually put the strings on. And we've got our tuning pegs in the head ready for the strings. I think I said this earlier on. I had a look to see if I had any more strings, but it turns out these were the strings that I had left over from my last instrument build, so I am going to have to individually unwind these from the old tailpiece. I will see you in the next one where we'll be stringing up this instrument and not tuning it, because that takes quite a while. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Cheers.